Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, April 19th Town Board Work Session. I'd like to have the clerk call this meeting to order, please.
Drawe.
Here.
Cole.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Ockenden.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. So I want to just a couple announcements here. One is our Saturday brush drop-off dates have just been announced, are going to be announced tonight. The first one is April 29th, and they are 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. over at the DPW here on Jackson Road. What's the
1607 Jackson Road.
1607. Thank you, Eric. And then the following are going to be monthly through the fall. The next one is 5/20, May 20th, and then June 17th, July 15th, August 19th, September 30th, and that would be a fall drop-off and recycling. And then the last is October 21st. So again, these will go up on the website, but again, the first one is in 2 weeks, April 29th, 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. So if you have any brush, other things to drop off, Eric, is there anything special on that for drop-off?
Yep, so those drop-off events, it'll be one Saturday a month. It'll be on those, the Saturdays specified. It'll be for the brush drop-off only, so sticks, branches, limbs, logs, just no leaves and no grass clippings.
Okay. On that September 30th, that's everything else?
Yep, the September 30th it'll actually be the 29th being a Friday as well as Saturday the 30th.
Great.
That'll be our fall drop-off and recycling event, so that's a little bit of everything other than, again, leaves, grass clippings, household hazardous waste. Those items will not be accepted, but
Great.
just about everything else would.
Thank you so. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have board before you March 22nd, 2023. Is there any additions, deletions, corrections? Seeing none, roll call vote, please. Thanks.
Drawe.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cole.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Ockenden.
Aye.
Were we going to?
Move it? I'll move it.
Move it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did
That's
I not?
okay.
I'll move it. Anybody second?
I'll second that.
Moved in second. I'm sorry.
Threw me off
We
there.
did. I'm
That's
sorry
okay.
about that.
No problem. All aye.
That's me. All right. Monthly reports here are all in. Thank you so much from staff. Guests, we have no guests this evening. We're going to go right into our action items. And Carrie, first one, administrative approval for revised for 1776 Penfield Road.
Happy to take that. So the owner of the business which is called Guacamole Tacos and Margaritas, made application to the town board seeking approval for a temporary outdoor modification to an existing patio space that's located on the property. You'll recall that this property is actually located on two parcels, 1776 and 1778. However, this particular existing patio, is only located on 1776. Just to clarify for the board why previous approval has referenced both addresses. The application identified that the existing patio space would be fitted with a pergola-like structure, happy to call that up, and was looking to install or locate an outdoor bar that could be used for waiting customers and restaurant patrons in the seasonal warmer months to handle overflow. If any of you have been inside the building, there's very limited waiting space, and their internal bar is fairly small in size compared to other restaurants that offer this kind of a restaurant. So let me pull up some images so you can look at them.
And I see the owner is here this evening.
The owner is here. So Gareth is here to come answer any questions or seek clarification. I would also clarify that he's indicated that he's working through the State Liquor Authority, which governs how and where outdoor service of alcohol is allowed and what design provisions are required by the state. So obviously, any approval, by the town would be conditioned upon him receiving the necessary permitting through the state liquor authority. Because it's an existing patio, and because the proposed use was seasonal in nature, to me, it seemed to be in keeping with the regulations for Four Corners that would allow this board to authorize the town official to administer a conditional use permit administratively. So that's really what I'm here to chat about. And certainly if you have any questions about the proposed use of that outdoor space, the applicant's probably better suited to answer the questions, although I would give it a shot if you want me to.
You can come up, Gareth, if you would like to come up to one of these microphones right here. Thank you. Welcome. Good. How are you?
Great.
Carrie, maybe just one question that is maybe under your area.
Sure.
Is there a limit to patrons that can be in that space? Is there any kind of?
So for outdoor space, Liquor Authority, again, is going to have some purview over that. Certainly, we would be having the fire marshal review to make sure that the number of seats or spots that they show, and you'll see that on this drawing that I have up for you here, it does show a specified number of seats, and so we would verify that this is no issue in this in confined space. Typically, there's a per person square footage that needs to be met. Again, this would be reviewed by the fire marshal's office to make sure that this complied with New York State Building Code requirements for outdoor. Internally, there's requirements. I'm not sure what the difference is outside. We would certainly have that verified.
Okay.
And that's also another condition on even when it's administratively approved, there's a number of conditions, and one of the standard ones is that you'll comply with all requirements of the fire marshal and New York State Uniform Code.
I'm just worried about the process. So I come in, I don't have a reservation, or take a reservation. So I go in there, right? And somebody in the front in the building, and there's no table yet, but there is room at this outdoor bar. She would take me over to that, and I'd have a time that I could, so I'm on a wait list, and I can have a drink out there.
So we had two options.
Yes.
Oh, excuse me, Gareth. Before someone from downstairs yells at you, you're going to need to come closer to the
I'm sorry.
microphone.
Or bring, there you go. Thank you.
So somebody comes in, we have a system, we have an application where if there's a wait, we put somebody in the system, ask them whether they want to see it inside, outside. The reason for this bar is basically overflow.
Right.
A lot of people like to sit outside, enjoy the weather,
Yes.
and sit on the dining tables outside, which is fine, but a lot of people want to just have drinks there. So they just want to come for drinks at those tables.
Right.
Before I signed the lease in this building, there was a proposal to do a big deck in the front.
Yes.
Which I had an option to do or
Right.
do it with the landlord, but this was the most feasible idea since it's better than doing reconstruction and a lot of stuff. Anyway, they'll come in, back to your question, they'll put the name in, we'll offer the inside bar for drinks or the overflow outside. Somebody wants to just have a drinks, an appetizer, and enjoy the weather. They can enjoy what's available, whether it's in the bar there, which will be fenced by the liquor authority, the way it should be.
But that's my next question. How do you prevent somebody from just going in there and sitting down,
So it will be fenced.
Yes.
To whatever the liquor authority will like.
Right.
But the way to get to the bar, as you see, has to come from kind of the restaurant area. It will be managed by us, and if there's no space, then the inside will be the next option.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I'd like some clarification, please, sir. I read the application, and Ms. Ivers, it's my understanding that there would be no food being served at this outside waiting area, but you just mentioned appetizers and whatnot. So
Yeah, I
is
think-
that a change?
I think with alcohol, you have to offer some food, and appetizers will be ideal to make sure there's appetizers available, because of the permit for alcohol has to I can't limit just alcohol.
And that's fine. Not saying that you can't, but I think it needs to then be reflected appropriately in the application
Sure.
for us to sign off.
Okay.
It currently is not reflecting the plan of the business.
I do think that the liquor authority would like to see some kind of food.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think, and originally you indicated that was going to just be for drinks, but upon learning that the state liquor authority may require some base level of food, whether it's appetizers or chips and salsa, be available
Yeah,
to
I
folks
think
out-
it's, for the license, it has to be some, or at least offered, that it's
Okay.
available.
Yeah. Right, not entrees, but
Yeah.
chips and salsa. That's the kind of thing, you remember all during COVID and the breweries had to have chips or something with the beers and,
Correct, right.
I know, that was a concern, so
Yeah.
you don't want to go against the
Yeah, it's
liquor
more
authority.
an option for waiting patrons to, wait for the table and then, mingle on some food and eventually have dinner.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Is there any music or anything planned for outside?
Music, there's been suggestions about music, but not particularly for this bar, and just in general for the patio. I'm not there yet, but not planning on putting bands or anything like that, other than maybe acoustic person that will do something for both, but not a.
Yeah, I just asked because that's a little more residential maybe than some of the other locations that we currently allow this, and
Right.
Yes.
it, might be a little more sensitive.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah,
You have to have a permit.
And you'd come back to us for that.
Okay.
If you were interested in some music, we'd like to see
Yeah,
that.
so I think that's something we always tell applicants that are seeking a conditional use permit or a special use permit, that outdoor music has to be part of the application if that's something that you're seeking to do.
Yeah.
And so that would be something, either if you're not prepared to talk about that tonight or have plans for that, then we can always have you come back to a future
No,
meeting.
that's totally different. It's been ideas, but
Okay.
not part of
Hasn't
this.
been formalized. Okay.
And I don't have anything signed with musicians or anything like that.
Yeah.
Eventually down the road, we'll see. It's not part of the business model right now.
You know where to find us.
Of course.
So paragraph 6 of the application has that the operations would be subject to all of the town codes and regulations, which I understand would be subject to noise ordinances, right, with any
Correct.
light fixtures. I saw that there would be a note that they would have to be turned off. I don't see any other lighting attachments in the proposed drawings, but it's my understanding that if there were, it would be, it would have to come back or be subject to existing, the prior approval, right?
Yes, and I believe
So-
that even with lighting, we can certainly, and we can modify, this was a draft prepared
Right.
for your consideration or review at tonight's meeting. We can certainly also indicate that any outdoor lighting has to be turned off once business operations are, outside of the hours of operation.
That annoys, right? Because if patrons
Sure.
are sitting there.
Right.
Past, I can't remember the hours of your business, sir. Was it past 10?
No, 4 to 9.
4 to 9, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's going to fall within noise ordinance. So this is a draft, right, tonight? So there's no
Yeah, this
action
is-
by us tonight?
Well, this is the request would be for me to issue
Request.
me requesting the town board's approval to issue this conditional use permit administratively. So that I prepared for you the administrative approval that I would be issuing to make sure that there are any other issues or conditions that you would like me to apply as it relates to this application.
So normally, the town board would have authority in the Four Corners District to grant or deny a request for a conditional use permit. But in the Four Corners District, there's a provision that authorizes the town board in its sole discretion to delegate that authority to the authorized official. And so that's what she's looking for tonight, is the authority to handle this application administratively.
So can we put that as a condition? Because it still needs to be updated. Like, the application originally reflected no service of food, but we've heard that it
Right,
has.
so Carrie,
okay.
if you delegated that authority, then it would be up to Carrie to make sure that that was
Incorporated into
yeah.
the issued approval. I can do that. I can specify compliance with the town code and specify noise as the specific noise ordinance, and specify that any outdoor lighting associated with the patio use needs to be terminated or turned off at the time that the business closes.
Right, and the liquor authority is going to determine so you might have to wait a little bit just to get word from
It's
them.
the extension of the permit that we already have.
They're not going to,
I don't think it will be denied. It's just a matter of making sure it's fenced, make sure we go through they already have all the information, insurances, and that we have. It's just a matter of making sure we follow it's mainly fencing, I think, to contain.
right,
And obviously doing it right.
right. I think, with the liquor authority and with Carrie's knowledge and what we've, just said tonight, I certainly would move that we support Carrie for administrative approval to follow through on this project. And
Do I have a?
Is that language?
it's,
Yeah, so basically to authorize, to delegate the authority to
to the
handle
Director
this
of Development.
permit to the authorized official.
So I need I have a motion by Linda and a second by
I'll second that.
Bob. Councilperson Ockenden? Can we have a roll call
Drawe.
vote? Yeah, aye.
Cole.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
All aye.
Great. Thanks, Carrie, for putting that together for us, and thank you
Appreciate
guys
it.
for coming. Good luck. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good night, and see you
Appreciate
soon. Appreciate it. If
Thank
you have any
you.
other questions, you know where to find me.
Yeah, we know where to
All
find
right.
you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Appreciate it.
Aye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for coming. Next, Carrie, Ms. Ivers, we have 1403 Empire Boulevard Special Use Permit and Site Plan Application for Pets at Peace.
Yes, thank you. I'm just calling up the address so that I can show it to you and our viewers at home visually. So 1401 is located along Empire Boulevard. You'll recall, or some of you may recall, that Rick Harris came in to the town board as a guest to discuss this potential development opportunity. I believe that was at the end of last year, if I'm not, no, forgive me, the year before. It might have predated my arrival here. They did some due diligence on the property to ensure that the building that they were proposing or looking to seek approval from the town board could actually be supported on the site, and have decided to move forward. The proposal would seek a special use permit to construct a Pets for Peace facility. They currently lease space, hope I'm not misrepresenting, but they currently have this operation located in the town of Arundequite. They've been looking for a location in this vicinity for some time and would rather own and build their facility themselves. The request for tonight is to allow me to prepare a resolution for the May 5th meeting, formally accept Did I say that right? May 3rd. I keep on
3rd.
saying May 5th.
That's okay, May 3rd.
We're not coming here for Cinco de Mayo, I don't think, on a Friday.
That means that, guacamole.
So, forgive me, May 3rd, to prepare a resolution to formally accept the application, set the public hearing date for the following legislative meeting, and move the application forward. We have received a complete application. All forms required have been received and reviewed. And so I'm just asking for that permission to prepare the resolution.
I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Drawe.
Aye.
Cole.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
All aye.
Great. Thank you for preparing that, Carrie. Next up here on the agenda is the Clark House follow-up. Mr. Tait, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. As we discussed, and if I recall correctly, I believe it was back in February that this was last discussed with the board. Bergman did come in, presented to the board what they've kind of worked on. The plan that they had showed and incorporated part of the potential lodge addition, utilizing space within the existing kind of homestead house within that original 1832 component. With that, the request from the board at the time was to kind of go back, make a revision to the overall conceptual plan to take out the utility room storage portion, as well as the storage for, any tables, chairs, that would be utilized within that lodge part. So, before you is the revised floor plan for what they've done. They did incorporate some of the other suggestions and requests, including the canopy, rather than making that the full outside patio canopy, to kind of make that the scaled back,
Yep.
smaller portion,
Good.
fitting with the kind of the existing roof lines on the building. So that's what's kind of before you. I know one of the items that was discussed was still, and a little bit up in the air, was still either some type of field stone, and or, combination of stone, brick, vertical siding, horizontal siding on that flat roof portion that connects the original house with the lodge. Certainly something that we can continue to think about, but ultimately wanted to see if the board was in favor and agreeable with the current floor plan as is, or I guess as revised, rather.
Board? This is pretty much what
we
we
asked for.
asked for.
Yeah.
You can see the portion of the house has really nothing in there right now, showing its,
And again, they showed the original house kind of left blank with the idea
Right.
that it was separate from the lodge. It would have a locking door, with the idea that if there was something that needed to incorporate both spaces, it could. However, the town could restrict access to the original house, from that of a renter, of the lodge itself.
Yeah.
Kind of give us the flexibility if needed, but not to just let anyone that rents it roam the entire thing.
Exactly. Well, we really don't have a plan for the house itself, and that's the thing. We're going to do this lodge that'll extend to the house, but the house itself, we don't have a plan for the future of it, whether we're going to make it a museum, we're going to rent it out to somebody, whatever. But this lodge will help in that effect, that, if we get the lodge going, and we certainly need lodges in Penfield, and it'll be so great for the Shadow Pines anyway, because you're going to have the bathroom in there too for people on the outside. So all that being said, after that's done, that'll be the next phase, I suppose, is talking about the Clark House itself. How much do you want to put into trying to bring it back to what it was, or can we, or what it could be. We don't want to tear it down. We want to do something with it, but we don't. You can't do everything at once, and this is a first step that's going to really help. It's going to help the community. It's going to help that Shadow Pines, I think, in general. It's going to have like a what do you call it? This base right there that's going to be the heart of Shadow Pines. So, I'm for it.
Yeah, I think one of the things we wanted to do was make sure the house, to Linda's point, was to keep that as preserved as we could and not just a storage closet. I think that was one of the things we wanted to change. And I think this is the first, unfortunately, I've been able to view this latest drawing, so I apologize. But it looks like that's been accomplished from what I can gather here. I know we had talked about some outside, maybe where the walking paths and how they pass by the house. And those are things I assume, though, that don't have to be locked into stone right away. And
right now, my question is, is the board in favor or supportive of the current floor plan, how Bergman has revised that?
for the structure.
for the structure.
Correct.
Yep.
If so, ultimately the next step would be, similar to what we discussed at the last work session regarding the DPW building, would be to, I would reach out to Bergman, request a proposal for the architectural and engineering design services for said building. That would include not only the new lodge component, it would include whatever demolition drawings needed to be included for kind of the portions of the existing Clark house that would be taken down, what they would incorporate them working with consultants, specific to the original house to make sure that that's being preserved, that what's being done is correct, what exactly would need to be done to kind of match and mate the two. It would also incorporate the overall site plan, so the grading, the redesign, relocation of the walking paths, the parking lot, what exactly would need to be done for the overall site to make everything work.
So I guess the only thing that I might ask that may go against that where you are tonight, but I want to ask it just to be sure. Carrie, could you bring up a view, I guess it would be the east elevation, maybe? If that's how you're going to label.
So,
Are you
Yeah,
looking-
so that one, the top one there is good.
This one
Number
right here?
3, number 3.
Oh, okay.
number 3.
Yeah. I was just trying to take a look, and, we've talked about where the restrooms might be located, and I guess the reason I spoke about the walking paths and that is I think a lot of people do transition from the front, we'll call it the front 9 and the
to the
back
back
9,
nine, right.
So we see that now, that
Yep.
there's a lot of transition across
Right.
the sidewalk and then across to their side. So kind of under this plan, though, it's like it's going to, I think the walking path comes down this driveway, correct, on the east side?
Correct. So
Where people are kind of, I don't want to say funneled, but directed if they're going to cross over to go down that driveway. And my only concern is that's kind of like the main entrance. Is there going to be a lot of cars dropping people off or picking, people up at that location? And are we introducing a lot of walking traffic where vehicles may be, stacking up, dropping off, elderly residents, that sort of thing? And I just wondered,
That's a good point.
Sure. Now, I know with this, what's currently in place, I know there are, essentially driveway access on both sides of the building coming all the way out to Clark Road. With and while these plans may not be the best to utilize in this situation as we're discussing it, the proposal was to kind of modify some of the walking paths so that, especially on the west side of the building, what's currently there and abuts the patio that comes off of the former bar room, that would actually swing quite a bit wider around
to the west.
more
More to
even
the west.
further to the west.
And just have it up so if you need to see or
Yes,
point to anything.
perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Again, where the informal crosswalk and what, we're intending on actually striping as a formal crosswalk across Clark Road, kind of connecting that front 9 and back 9 this year, where it kind of juts in to the east and gets closer to the building, that would actually be rerouted and swing further away from the building, closer to the disc golf course, to provide separation for anyone that is renting the lodge. If they're out on that back patio,
Right, so
that they
people
don't
aren't just
have
jogging
others,
by
visitors and patrons of the property just walking right by.
So-
Right.
And as part of that, it would also kind of swing around the southern, the kind of the front portion of what's that original home, and tie more into the parking lot itself. With that, and the concern of any vehicle traffic, we certainly could remove and make that just more of a pedestrian walkway rather than a driveway entrance for vehicular traffic.
Well, I think you still want a drop-off spot, right? I think
Yeah,
that's-
you would have it in the back, whether you needed to have
Two.
an access coming from the parking lot all the way out to Clark Road. That's certainly something that can
Okay.
be
We can't drop
So-
off in
Tweaked
the other
within the-
lodges.
So, but what you're
overall
saying
plan.
physically, when you're through those things, Carrie, there's really a path, there'll be a fine path, almost a U-shape, a path on either side of the property.
Yes.
Rounding up and then going over to the crosswalk.
Correct.
But the other side of I see what you're saying, the other side, you're going to have, the driveway will be teeing it almost up there? Almost a tee?
So,
Go back to the.
I don't know if it shows it on the,
yeah, again, these are a little difficult to
yeah. Oh.
make
well,
out and see. You can see it a little bit down there. It does kind of spur off with the kind of a somewhat of a pathway coming to what's the kind of the current front porch, doorway to the house, as well as around to that outside
the path.
eastern
That's
porch.
the path.
That would be the path,
And where
tying back into what is that
is the drive then?
easternmost driveway. It's what that line that's cut off on that side, that's where the current driveway is. But it certainly doesn't need to be a formal
You mean the
driveway
driveway from
either. It could
Whalen
be
Road?
coming connecting from the parking lot out to Clark Road.
Okay.
Just for orientation purposes, down here is Clark Road.
Right.
The front entrance to the Clark House faces Clark Road, and so this would be the potential connection. And I think that the site plan or the civil, sort of the site plan for the building needs to be adjusted and couldn't be adjusted until the footprint was approved by or had consensus by the town board.
Understood.
Well, that was the only reason I went down this path is if there was a need to, if the pedestrian traffic for the park, right, we're trying to accommodate the people who want to use a restroom and
Sure.
get to the building, is it on the right side of the building, I guess is where I was ultimately going with that. So you'd want to make it as convenient as you could for the people cutting through the park, and that's why I'm
I think
down this road that we're at.
one of the reasons it was specifically put on this side of the building is to minimize the number of people that are, or I guess, try to provide as much separation from that back patio as possible. While we can pave, pathways and walking trails wherever we want, people are going to take the path of least resistance, and we'll end up having goat trails kind of through the property just because. We've seen that just over the past number of years and kind of rerouted what we've got as a formal trail, just based on where the foot traffic's been. I think that ultimately the idea was to put it there so that someone doesn't try to cut and walk right alongside the patio area to get to the bathrooms as quickly as possible.
Yeah, well, that's why I think that path should be further west, just to keep the pedestrian traffic away from it as much as possible.
Okay.
And it is further west. Carrie, I don't know if you can scroll just to the left on that screen. So where you can see that path, that has already been adjusted and moved over further. It just wasn't reflected in the
Gotcha. Okay.
the site
Yeah.
on here.
All right.
I think out in the actual rotunda, if you look at that site plan, I think it's their landscaping site plan kind of overall, that actually shows that
Okay.
kind of Y off and quite a bit more separation from the building.
And another reason I believed putting those, correct me if I'm wrong, putting the restrooms in the front as well as the visual from the road so we can keep track of, vandalism and things like that. People aren't, somewhere behind in the park using the restrooms. We can
Gotcha.
keep an eye on them, I think.
Yeah, I think if you think about other parks in the town, I live closest to Harris Whalen, and that bathroom is on the drive side, like of the park entrance side of the building, and the main entrance is gained to the actual lodges from the parking lot. But you can't miss the bathroom; it's in full view.
Right.
Looking at the revised drawing where the utility closets and the coat closets were moved to accommodate the desire to keep the house portion historical, can you tell me if we lost other square footage or if there was a separate closet that was lost as a result of the move?
So nothing was lost. The overall square footage of the building actually increased to accommodate that. The lodge portion actually got bigger to
Okay.
fit what was kind of allocated for the approximate square footage from what was in the original house into the lodge. So the overall lodge and structure actually lengthened and moved
Okay.
further north.
And if you look at the sort of the outline of this sort of footprint of where that utilization is happening now in the revision, it sort of fits in to
Okay.
what was here before.
So that's what I just wanted to confirm. And then part of their report, so for the Clark house, is the design or will the bid still include the exterior of the house?
Yes, so the bid specs would once everything's designed, we're finalized
Okay.
with how everything's going to look inside and out. It would include everything from, the repairs, the the selective demolition of the kind of newer additions to the original house, the, reconstruction of this lodge addition, any and all repairs associated with the house, the utilities,
Foundation,
the
everything.
overall shell, any and all inside, interior, and exterior finishes, as well as
Okay.
grading, landscaping, site work.
Okay.
That would all be included.
Okay, so are we looking for a resolution to take this out to bid?
Well, so it'd be a request from the board, or direction from the board, that I would request a proposal for the engineering services from Bergman for the review and consideration by the board.
To move into construction document preparation?
To the final design based on this anticipated, or this
This
current floor plan,
Floor plan.
to design everything so that they can prepare the construction documentation and then ultimately go out for bid.
for a bit.
My question is, shouldn't this go to Historic Preservation Board first because it's a Penfield landmark and it's going to be
Has it
something,
not gone to the,
not for this approval. I mean, they looked at it, they made comments, but
So I know one of the things, and as Debbie and I did discuss with Bergman, they would incorporate within the proposal the coordination with, outside consultants. I know recently we actually had a site tour, kind of site visit with Barrow Architecture. They do specialize and will do a lot of historic building review and rehabilitation. They, during that site visit, Jennifer Ahrens did indicate that she does or has done some consulting work with Bergman in the past and would be happy to assist and continue to work with them on this. Ultimately, anything that's proposed and designed would need to go to the Historic Preservation Board.
so that's
I
what I'm
think,
just-
I think I agree with Linda. I will be honest, I think we got this report rather late. I haven't had a chance to fully review the Barrow report, which is 24 pages, but in the first 3 pages, they do talk about at least the standards for rehab and then went through a lot of the history. So I think that's kind of, I wasn't sure what we were looking, what the action time step is. So I think I agree with Linda that let's get this to the,
It's like the Daisy Flower Mill, right? So they were going to do some work on it because it's a Penfield landmark. It went to Historic Preservation Board for the okay of what they wanted to do before it came to us. I mean, because they are the grantors of the Penfield landmarks. They're the ones that deal with it. So I just wondered for this case, since there will be, when you brought up, it made me start thinking about is it going to be work done on the house too? Yes,
Yeah,
there will
'cause
be.
I
If it
saw-
was just a lodge, it's not that, but the house is a landmark, and any kind of work on a landmark must get approval to go ahead by the Historic Preservation Board. So my question was, is,
the
should we do
sequencing is.
that now before it goes any farther? Because this is construction documents going to be prepared.
except right now, there isn't really, it's a kind of a blank, I think it's like a blank slate for the house, I think, except for what we already know, that they need to repair the part of the foundation, right?
Well,
And
Anything touching that
They do have
building.
to, the Historic Board does have to approve the demolition of the other
Yeah.
pieces of the property.
Business certificate of appropriateness, they have to,
But I would think
Before.
we'd somewhat need to come up with a design proposal to be able to share with them for consideration.
So that's your thought, that this cart before the horse, that we get this information out first and then take it to them?
so you want engineered, so I think what Eric is saying is that you would need to retain Bergman to do the site plan and the drawings, and then at that point, now you have good engineered plans,
Then you're gonna-
present those to the Historic Preservation Board before you go out to bid and say, let's build this.
Okay.
Not to reflect, the engineered plans that we have, or the site plan that we have now, corresponds to the previous building footprint. It hasn't been amended to reflect the change in architectural and the footprint. So I think is that what you would be seeking
Well,
from Bergman?
Is there going to be a material change from like the vertical siding and I think the design options with the materials that we would be asking for input on ultimately?
Well, there possibly could, I mean, there possibly could. Is that,
I guess I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, as far as what was proposed for the
It'll be in the bid.
materials to be used by Bergman in their initial report, could that potentially change?
No.
Are you thinking you want to send Bergman, or send the Historic Preservation Board like this package here?
Yeah, can they at least provide some feedback initially with the packet that's here? Because, I mean, I'm assuming that we would want the two structures to at least have some type of unifying look. So can they use this information and
Right.
primarily the interior, what were the proposed updates to the interior to provide some initial feedback before we go out and then get a construction design or whatnot, right?
I don't know, I was only thinking about certificate of appropriateness and when it should be officially done by the Historic Preservation Board.
I don't want to get too far ahead of that committee, I guess.
And Shannon's been really good, Shannon Berg, who's the staff for that committee, and she brings up anytime anything has changed, whatever, it's always brought up. This tonight will be brought up at the next meeting, for sure. But, do we want to wait for
The
that
next
or
meeting
not?
is scheduled for May 4th.
May 4th.
Oh, so it's after, but still before our work session.
Well, but you could, why not, why do you have to do it, why can't you pursue simultaneous paths, right? You're not going to have, so what Eric's talking about is getting a resolution, or when would you get the proposal? Like, you're still a
You're still
couple of
seeking a
steps
proposal.
out on the proposal
Yeah,
side.
I mean, I would reach out to get a proposal from Bergman with the idea that I would bring that before the board prior to, or at the next work session.
Right, which is going to be later in May.
Correct.
So-
In the meantime, we can.
Send this to
also
the
share
Historic
this with the
Preservation
Historic
Board.
Preservation Board, share.
You don't have to do
the
one
note
step.
From Bergman, but at least if the Historic Preservation Board seem to be in favor of it, then we also know what the cost is and can discuss that and continue to move
Get
forward.
the Historic Preservation Board's feedback from the revised plan that we have tonight, combined with what was presented last time, and ask them to provide that, before the May work session of the town board, so that you have that in hand before you even retain Bergman to do
Sure.
design
Right.
work, real engineered architectural.
And if there are issues that come up in the review and consideration of a certificate of appropriateness, that could be reflected in the work that Bergman performs.
But ultimately, I think the certificate of appropriateness, seems to me that would be based on the more formalized plans later, but you want to get their initial
initial
feedback now, so you don't spend a lot of extra money before you
Right.
realize you got to
If
change
you knew there were
course.
issues that were going to be a concern for a certificate.
Okay,
that's a very good point. Yep,
all right.
so
So what do we want to do with this? Is this a vote to move forward to,
Be a request from the board that I, reach out to Bergman and
Bergman and-
request a proposal for
what construction
the design
documents?
services.
Design
Design
services.
services.
As well as coordinate with Shannon and the Historic Preservation Board to review the documentation received thus far.
Okay, so
And
moved.
can I just ask, when we receive those documents, for a turnaround time from Bergman with at least 5 business days, so that the board has an opportunity to review with at least 2 business days?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
I would have that, I would need to have it.
Typically, it's the
on-
Friday
by-
before anyways, right?
By the Friday
Yeah.
prior to be able to put on
Yeah.
for review as well.
Yes.
yeah. Fair enough then.
I'll second that motion, thank you.
Okay. Can we have a roll call vote, please, Sue?
Drawe.
Aye.
Cole.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ackenden.
Aye.
All aye.
Great, okay. Next, again, Mr. Tait is our beloved DPW facility proposal.
Thank you. So as kind of discussed at a number of meetings to this point, and really over the past 5 to 6 years, we're continuing to work towards a new DPW facility. At the request of the board at the last work session, I did reach out to MRB, asked them to prepare a proposal, of which they did, and had shared that with you. The proposal includes kind of just verifying what's been done for a conceptual schematic design to make sure that that incorporates and includes all of our needs, wants, requests within the building, and then completing the actual engineering and architectural design. Once that part is completed, to prepare the construction documentation, and then ultimately to assist with the bidding phase. With that said, during the actual construction document or the engineering, they did incorporate some additional services that the town would need to contract outside of MRB, things for geotechnical investigation, any hazardous material identification within the existing buildings, and then one of the third thing noted was for an independent third-party cost estimating service, just to verify, while MRB can give us, numbers that are fairly accurate, some of with kind of the changing market, the independent construction estimators may be able to kind of better refine that, just to make sure that we're still on track, we're still kind of within budgeted and projected scope. So wanted to make sure that that was included. I know with the Town of Webster kind of going through the same process with their proposal, that was one thing that they did to make sure that, again, while they're also using MRB, that MRB's numbers and kind of the real world numbers were pretty close, very, very similar to one another. And certainly thought that was an advantage. Now, with that said, the proposal prepared by MRB did come out to a cost of $1.22 million. Looking back at the overall cost estimate and kind of estimate from MRB, that is in line, that's kind of within the budget and what had been kind of allocated for that soft cost fee.
Sure. It's about 5% of the budget, I believe.
Yes, would come out to just about 5% exact of the actual cost of the building, which is in line with, accurate engineered.
Pretty much an industry thing.
Yes, correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You got.
Right.
We're looking for tonight, board, then probably to prepare a motion for a resolution on this for the May 3rd, providing anybody has any additional questions or concerns.
So I have a few questions. So I'm looking at Article 3, Scope of Services. These are all add-ons. The hourly estimated fee for construction observation is a TBD.
Correct. So
And there are several blanks. Can you please fill those in for me, please?
Yep, so the construction administration as well as construction observation were left as to be determined, with the idea that this proposal gets us through the bidding phase. If bids come in and it's twice as much as everyone's expecting and, above and beyond whatever's been, authorized for a bond resolution, and how much money we actually can spend on this, then there's no need to pay for those services. If the numbers come in, we get bids, we get a number of contractors that do bid on this, everything looks to be within allocated budget and kind of on track, then there would be an additional proposal from MRB for the actual construction administration and observation, basically the oversight during the 24-month construction phase. So they left it, they can give us a number now, but without knowing exactly where the market's going to be, what's going on, how many, the final scope of the final building itself, they felt that it would be more appropriate to leave that as to be determined, with the idea that once we get to the bidding phase, they may be able to sharpen their pencil and actually provide a better number to us.
So these are just a couple concerns that I have for the board. I think I see the lump sums for what's going to be the baseline, right? Like the basic services in Articles 1 and 2 was $157,000, is that right? And then $178,860 for the schematic lump sum fee, and then design development. There were a lot of caveats, like additional services below in Section 3. None of that is priced out. Project assumptions, I'm assuming that, Mr. Tait, you've reviewed those, and the assumptions are normal or expected, reasonable in the proposal?
Yes.
Okay, so I assumed that as much. But then when we get to Article 3, again, there are a lot of TBDs, so we're saying that currently the end price for this phase fits within our budget, that's the 1.2 million, but it does not account for any of the TBD, which I have zero idea what would be reasonable for those fees, and it does not include any of the additional add-on recommended allowances. So I don't know if the recommended additional services are good to have, nice to have, need to have. Like, should I be adding the additional 80,000 there to the base 1.2 million?
So
Or can we save any of this money? Can I get some
Yep.
information?
So those additional services will be required. Those are
Okay, so
services.
then it's not recommended, it's required.
They're additional services outside of the scope that MRB is able to perform. So the hazardous material testing would have to go directly to a hazardous material testing company that has their laboratory, can identify that material. The geotechnical investigation would likely be specifically with a geotechnical engineer.
So is that 80,000 based on what MRB knows as industry standard?
Correct. MRB did get.
So it's a reasonable.
Yes, they got estimates from companies that have done these services in coordination with them on other DPW buildings. They got proposals, however, or estimates for that. However, those would be additional contracts that the town would sign directly with those individual companies for said
Yeah,
services.
I saw that they were going to be
So the-
subcontracts, and we're not getting any markups.
Yep,
I see that.
MRB's proposal, well, their fee is the 1.22, in combining with the 80,000 that they're telling us to earmark for these additional services, that 1.3 is actually what comes out to the 5%. For the construction observation and the construction administration, well, they've got them listed as to be determined. Typically, industry standard would be roughly 3% of the overall cost.
So what is 3% of the overall cost?
Give or take 750,000-ish.
Okay, so then now we're closer to the $2 million mark.
Which is still within what was anticipated in their original estimate for the building, still within that.
Okay, and that's
15%
fine.
soft cost fee.
It just wasn't apparent from their
Yep.
documentation tonight. So I think,
I mean, all we would be authorizing them to do, it would be the schematic design, the engineering, the construction documentation, and just the bidding. It would not, it's not authorizing them to do the construction administration or observation, not knowing the price.
right.
They just wanted to leave it in here so we knew what would be offered and included in those services at a later date.
And then,
So I
I was going to say, I was going to want to add one thing. Because the construction bid process is going to yield various results from contractors saying, I can do this in 24 months, I can do this in 22 months, I can do this in 20 months, the duration of construction management and oversight could vary depending on who the selected bidder is. And so that's the other reason that they typically don't.
So
Yeah.
that's fine. I just need subject matter
information.
experts to kind of fill in the, right? Because I'm not going to, let's say, move forward with all of these blanks and then commit, $500,000, $700,000 in, and then somebody tells me, actually, that TBD is another $4 million, right? So,
yeah.
okay. So if I am looking at this in total based on industry standard and subject matter experts telling me that the anticipated TBD would add 3% or approximately 700,000, then the anticipated ceiling, I guess, is going to still be around the 2 million, but still falling within our allocated budget and the expected expense when this was presented to us in February. Fair to say?
Fair.
Okay, I'm fine then. Thank you.
Okay.
And then there is going to be an actual contract too that accompanies this.
So I think this proposal is pretty sure this proposal is the contract itself. Would certainly be subject to, to your review.
Always.
Yeah.
Because they say that then they're going to forward the standard form of agreement between owner and engineer for professional services, so.
Yeah, so I think it,
This would be an attachment to that typically.
yes,
And
thank
I'm
you.
assuming that's where they'll specify like payment terms and.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah. So you don't hand over a check for.
Yeah, rather than making the proposal 40 pages long, that, yes, the two would be combined.
Has MRB provided any input on project timeline for being out to bid? Is there a better time? Is there a, I know it's.
Yes, it's in there.
Last page.
Okay.
Yep, it is.
So ideally, we're actually at a good point right now. The best time to go out for bid would be kind of winter, early spring timeframe, as contractors are going to be looking to figure out the rest of their year's work, which will kind of fit into the schedule of what we're trying to do, with this overall project.
Okay.
I'm probably looking
I think
at
based on their,
out to bid a year from this summer,
pretty much, yeah.
potentially,
And then,
2024.
with the idea that we could potentially break ground as early as June of 2024, knowing that it's an approximate 24-month construction phase for the kind of scope and size of this project and all the ancillary buildings.
Okay.
Board, guys, good? Any
Yeah.
other, so what we'd be looking at is preparing a motion for Eric to prepare a resolution for the May 3rd meeting.
So moved.
I'll second
Go
that.
ahead. Roll call vote, please.
Drawe.
Aye.
Cole.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
All aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eric, for all the work involved in that, too, putting this together. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda, out-of-district sewer connection for 1221 and 1225 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. I know that Mr. Valentine is not here, but he had entrusted you, Mr. Tait, with, to prepare this for us.
Yes, so Mark and I have kind of been working on this with the residents for a little while, trying to wrap our heads around what's there, what would need to be done to accommodate. A little kind of history on this. Our sewer department was approached by the owners of 1221 and 1225 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. They currently, both properties are on septic, and they have inquired and ultimately would like to tie into the town-owned and maintained sanitary sewers. When the Abington, they're just east of the Abington development. When the Abington development was installed, that was a sewer district extension to the town's overall consolidated sewer district. These two properties, while they did have, the owners of the properties did have conversations with the developer at the time about the possibility of making provisions to tie in at a future date, did not sign the developer's petition to create the overall, that district extension. So their initial request and ultimate question, based on the petition that was submit and shared with the board, is would the town board be willing to consider allowing these two properties to enter into the consolidated sewer district as out-of-district users.
And they were given the opportunity, and they chose not to at the time because their septics were fine at the time?
Well, they just didn't have interest.
They didn't have
Yeah,
any
whether they
interest.
didn't have interest, he said they did inquire with the developer about the possibility of making provisions, at which point, and as you can kind of see on the map that Carrie's got pulled up, there was a three-way manhole installed on Maya Drive with a
Yeah.
section of main extending back. The property lines are a little bit skewed, but there is a main that extends back that could be used to serve these two houses.
So what they'd want now is they'd like to
So
tie in.
I guess the first question is they want to know if the town board would be willing to consider allowing them to join the district as out-of-district users.
Wouldn't they have to pay for the connection, though?
So if the board was agreeable, to allowing them to join the district, they would be required to, cover the cost of their own lateral connections, as well as, they'd have the sewer debt fee added to their tax bill, as well as the operation and maintenance once actually tied in.
And the sewer entry fee, they
And
also pay as
sewer
well.
entry fee, correct, is part of the permit itself. The second part of their question, if the board was agreeable, being that the main was installed, there is no dead-end manhole at the end of that main. The developer put the main in, he bear the cost of that as a convenience to them, but also so to minimize the need to be able to dig up, in between existing houses in the neighborhood. However, there was no manhole installed at the end, just to clean out. To facilitate their connection, that clean out would need to be converted, or a manhole would need to be installed in place to allow their laterals to tie in. It gives us a differentiation point as far as ownership and maintenance responsibility between their laterals versus our manhole and main, as well as providing, us the ability to kind of flush and maintain that portion of sanitary sewer, to be able to pop manholes on either side and relieve pressure rather than causing or creating backups due to flushing.
So it's not a simple process to do,
Their request
they're
with
asking.
that is that the town cover the cost of installing that manhole and then share that cost, that the overall consolidated sewer district and every property within the town that's tied into sewers is not the ones to cover that cost, but that the town front the money and then charge that back to the two of them over whatever the cost is, divided by the two over however many years until that is paid off.
Have we ever done that before?
We have not. Not that I'm aware of, and in speaking with my predecessors, others in the sewer department, Mark, the former superintendent of sewers, none of us had recalled that ever happening prior. We've allowed out-of-district users to join,
Right.
but the town has not had
Right.
any involvement. Those property owners have always been required to make whatever improvements or modifications that are required to the town's sewer system, as well as covering the cost of their own laterals.
And they have no problem wanting to connect in and pay for that themselves?
Correct.
They're on their
They-
property?
Yes.
They are fine with that, and they understand the cost of that?
Yep.
They just want
They don't,
the town to
they're
bear the
unsure
cost,
if
and they want
they
to
have
be
enough
charged
money to
back?
cover the entire cost and are looking for the town to assist. Shared that it's ultimately the town board's decision.
Right.
You know, I don't see personally, if we did this for them, we'd, be
Again, that's why it's
liable
kind
to
of
other-
a two-part question.
Right.
We'd be willing to
Well, the
let
first
them
part,
enter.
it's like,
First
of
part's-
course, the
yeah.
first
Of course
part.
they can tell.
But the,
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But the second part, I think about like, I don't know, the big projects we've done over Shirewood and Burroughs Hills, or over in Parkview, Woodhaven.
we did that.
Most recently. And I remember specifically over there were a couple of people who didn't want to tie in, but it was very clear to them, in the future, if you want to, you can do this at your,
I mean, that was
at your cost.
that being one of the most, or the most recent town undertaken sewer district extensions. That was a petition that came from the neighborhood. It was the overall district incorporated the 100 plus or minus houses within that neighborhood. Is a larger project. That cost was borne by the overall
Yes.
consolidated sewer district, but with the idea that those neighbors, as they tied in, they would have to pay for operation and
them,
maintenance,
yeah.
but no matter what, they would be paying the sewer debt fee, and they would help offset, any other future improvements.
Right.
needed. We've never done it for an individual
Right.
property or.
No. I think out of
or even two
fairness,
lots.
I would say no to the second half of the question.
Sure, right. They'd like to tie in, absolutely, and they'd like to be a part of it and pay into the manhole cover
I mean,
as well.
I guess if that's the direction from the board, I can certainly reach back out to the residents.
Bob, Candace, agree?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I assume that work was proposed as if the sewer department was doing it, or was that an outside contractor doing the installation of the manhole and? Or how would that be?
We would need to contract that out. Ultimately, their request was just, would the town be willing to cover the cost? Whether they hired the contractor, whether the town hired the contractor.
But it will be a real cost. I mean, so it's
Correct,
not- yeah.
correct.
Right, it won't be
They're looking
just-
for a long-term loan from the town essentially for that cost of the manhole.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, if that's something we haven't done, yeah, that would-
I mean, we have not, I would personally have some hesitation, kind of where you draw the line.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Is it, manholes? Is it, a house that would like to tie in, but they would need a long side lateral and it would need to be drilled under the road and it's not there
Yeah.
presently?
Pump stations.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
have some hesitation with that. But can certainly reach back out to the resident, let them know, minimally the board would be willing to consider allowing them to join the district as an out-of-district user, but subject to them bearing the entire cost. And kind of then see, do they want to continue to proceed or not?
Okay. So, Mr. Tate will reach back out to them and let
Yes.
them know that this was not
Okay.
approved by the board? Okay. So, thank you for that. Next,
This is just
On
a
the
very
agenda,
quick informational item. I just wanted the board to be aware that the Penfield Education Fund reached out to us earlier this month to let us know that they have a 5K race planned. And so we've done some media alerts to neighborhood that are going to be impacted by that race. It's happening this Saturday from 9 to about 11 a.m. To assist and ensure that our neighbors were aware of the event, because it will send runners down neighborhood streets across from the community center, and it will involve runners crossing along Baird Road. We did send postcards to the folks that were on the race route directly, and the folks that were along Baird Road just between Penfield Road and Whalen.
Mr.
And I did
Ockenden, it's your neighborhood.
I did receive that,
You did,
yes.
okay, so you've been duly warned.
Yes.
Is this sort of the route of our old
Yes, it's
5K
exactly the
race
same.
the
It's
town
exactly
used
the
to do?
same one.
Yes, and so we did send out postcards letting them know what the race route was and what the time frame was, and we encouraged them to be careful looking out for runners in their neighborhood,
Yep.
be prepared for stopping along Baird Road, and to
Right.
feel free to cheer them on from their front yard if they'd like to. So I just wanted the board to know so that if you got any questions, you would know what was happening.
Very good.
Councilman Ockenden will have water at the end of his, no, I better not say
It's a
that.
little early for me on a weekend. I'm not sure I'll be up.
Okay, thank you for that. I have no held items, no old business, new business board, no new business. We do not have an executive session tonight. Our next work session will be May 17th, right here. So I can adjourn this meeting at 7:40. I want to thank PCTV, to Tyler and Wesley, our newest member of PCTV. Thank you, and thank you to security out there as well tonight. Thank you all for joining. Thank you to our audience, our captive audience that just showed up. Thank you so. Have a nice evening.